Welcome to Beyond Belief, Tales of Religious Exodus, where we delve into the personal journeys of people who've left fundamentalist religions. In this series, we explore their experiences within religion, their journey out, and how they found meaning and healing on the other side.
Awesome. Welcome, Sammy of Haram Doodles fame. You were recommended to me by Nushuz, who we had on a few weeks ago. And like we were just talking about, I'm always on the quest for more ex-Muslims because it's a especially rare type of ex-religious. And this month is ex Muslim month, I believe.
Yep.
So we'll talk about that as well. It feels very fortunate, or it's timely to be talking to you right now. So first of all, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And I'm so glad to be here during Ex-Muslim Month. I helped organize the month 3 years ago in 2022. And it was an idea that was born out of the Ex-Muslim subreddit, which is also started in December of 2010. And so it was such a cool thing to kind of see this idea come up. And then all I did was literally blasted that message out to as many ex-Muslims as I knew, and everyone jumped in. And since then, it's been an annual event, and every year we sort of all come together and figure out, okay, what are we going to do for a theme? I work with a coalition of ex-Muslims, and so it's been really cool. And so 2025, our theme this year is Why Not Islam?
Why not Islam?
Yeah.
Okay, that
Yeah.
is thank you for that perfect introduction to what's gonna be the next Why not Islam? I love that, and I wanna hear more
Yeah.
about what the month looks like and what you guys have accomplished, so we'll talk more about that, later on in the episode. And I would love to start at the beginning like I do with almost everybody, which is, like, your own background growing up,
Yeah.
Muslim.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's start at, like, where you were born and what the family was like.
Yeah, so I was born in the Middle East, but my family is originally from India and Pakistan. Obviously, moved to Pakistan during the partition, but I do still do have some family left in India as well. And I moved to the US when I was around 6, 7 years old. And so I really grew up as a South Asian Muslim immigrant kid. And so majority of my schooling was done here from second grade onwards. And so growing up, it was really just kind of felt a little bit like I was in a bubble. Yes, I was still existing in this American world, and also I was existing in a very Muslim world, a very South Asian Muslim world. Like there's kind of layer upon layer that I was navigating, I think. And yeah, also very difficult to find that path as a kid coming to this country where nobody looks like you anymore. Nobody speaks your language. They look at you like you're definitely I'm gonna put air quotes on, like, foreigner, and so you really do end up, as someone that comes in with, like, sort of these multicultural backgrounds. I think it's a really tough childhood to go through where you're going like, "I don't know, am I American enough? Am I South Asian enough? Am I Muslim enough? Am I woman enough?" There's all these questions that are going through. But yeah, but definitely kinda spent it in multiple worlds at once.
So, in your community where you guys moved to, there wasn't many people like you.
Eventually, there were. Over time, we noticed that, more and more folks were coming through. Even my family and I, we came here because some family members had come into the US in like the late 60s, early 70s when the Immigration Act, like, was put through. And so it opened up opportunities for more people to come out here. Yes, there was still a little bit of sort of stereotypical things happening where it was people that had degrees or specifically degrees in engineering that could come out here and get jobs very easily. And so that happened, and that fortunate that like our parents, were literally like, we don't have that many opportunities here. And at the time we were in Pakistan. And so my dad was like, I want to take you guys to the US because I want you all to have a better education and opportunities for work that I never had and that, my mom never had. Because they grew up in that partition phase. They grew up in survival mode pretty much all their life. And also, when I reflect back on it, they were immigrants for life. Like, we were immigrants in the Middle East, we were immigrants in Pakistan, we were immigrants now in the US. And so it really kind of helps it. For me, it really solidified the fact that, like, yeah, like I am an immigrant, and also I'm very American in that way too. Like, my family's always like, "You have such an American accent," and I'm like, "I grew up here. I of course I have an American accent." And so it was a lot of navigating those kinds of cultural and religious conversations throughout that childhood.
Yeah. Interesting. So it kind of grew around you guys, and you were like kind of pioneers of some of that. I'm hearing. How did religion play in, especially supposedly the United States being a more liberal place? And maybe I'm skipping ahead of like what religion meant to your family in
Mhm.
general, but I guess that was the question that came up for me: is what was it like in being religious in the U.S.?
Yeah, for the most part, I would say that my family majority of my family had been pretty laid back about religion. I think there was much more sort of nationalist sentiment, like we're Pakistani or we're Indian, but there's also that India-Pakistan rivalry. I'm not gonna go into that, but there's also that sentiment too. And also they went through their own traumas with partition. So granted, they were coming at it from a very different lens. And also you couldn't really separate being Muslim from being South Asian in my house or among the community even. A lot of the South Asian community that was there, it was so interwoven with everything, right? And so like if we were going for, to someone's house for like a Ramadan dinner, I would be wearing my like Pakistani outfit to do that, right? And so like there's culture and religion was very intertwined and also religious culture and ethnic culture, right? Like all of that stuff came together. And so it was never really like I could separate the 2 things out, but I think that's eventually what ended up happening for me was me separating and teasing those things apart and going, "What is Islam and what isn't? And what's also in Islam and maybe what's also in our culture and what isn't?" And so that was interesting is that really growing up with Islam being really, really tied to the core of your identity. You couldn't be anything else but that. You had to have that layer of Muslim.
It reminds me a little bit, as you're speaking, and one of the reasons I love these conversations is because as soon as you find the parallels, it diffuses your own unique spin that you think is your special fucked
Yeah.
upness. And it was always presented that being Jewish meant like Jewish is so confusing because Judaism is a religion, but we're also some sort of ethnic identity. And then there's a culture, and and that was presented as like this unique dilemma that
Yeah.
it meant to be Jewish. So I appreciate being told and informed that, yeah, a lot of cultures really mix it all up together in a nice mix. And then when you leave and deconstruct, it's like, what's left? Am
Right.
I still allowed to like chicken soup? Do I have to hate it all? You know, and
Yeah.
that becomes,
And I think there's not too many people in our circles or in our families or in our communities that are saying, "You know what? Why don't you go ahead and pick and choose what you like and you don't like? Or pick and choose the values that really matter to you and you can leave the rest behind. Or pick and choose the things about your culture." Like I love Pakistani Indian music, the food, the clothing, all those things are I absolutely love them, but I don't have to love other parts of the culture like misogyny or sexism. And so there's definitely, I think over time, we get a little more clear about what it is that we want and what we don't want, but we don't have enough voices in our around us telling us you can do that. And same thing with
yeah,
religion too, right? No one told us that we could
yeah.
leave.
An interview I had just had on is writing a book, I believe, and the title of the book is, hopefully she doesn't kill me for revealing in advance, but we'll consider it a pre-launch tease. Permission to Leave is
Mm,
actually the name of the book, right?
yeah,
And it's just that, right? You actually have permission. For me, it gets complicated because I have bad associations with a lot of things. In a vacuum, I could just do Hanukkah, and who doesn't like lights and stuff like that?
yeah,
But in practice, these things that should be nice and easygoing and just nice culture have been infused with religion to a really unnecessary and damaging degree.
yeah,
On the flip side, though, one of the few remaining things for me, like my partner and I, we both love certain types of music from our childhood, and that is very God infused. So we're sitting there
yeah,
singing about God, blah blah blah, and we don't believe a word of it, but the tunes are really good.
yeah,
And that's, I think, one of the biggest paradoxes still in my life, and it speaks exactly to that point, right?
yeah,
You choose the tune.
yeah. And I think to your point, we end up sort of also going like I can't call myself a cultural Muslim. I know there's a lot of people that like don't want to practice Islam, but they still end up calling themselves cultural Muslims because they're like, "Oh, but we might go to like Eid prayer or we might go to like a Ramadan party." And I'm like, for me, that that pains me to even call myself a Muslim because I'm not. And, for a Muslim to be a Muslim, they have to be a believer. They have to believe in God. They have to believe in the Prophet. And I believe in none of those things. And so I was like, I'm actually okay with calling myself an ex Muslim and okay with even just finding that word was such a sort of mind blowing moment. I was like, wait, what? Like, I considered myself atheist before, but ex Muslim, what is this? And so, but also finding that was such a powerful moment for me and my partner together and married. And he and I are both ex Muslim atheists. And so that was just a special thing that he and I both were like, what? There's a word for it?
Yeah, and it carries a lot of weight. I think I remember hearing you're reminding me that when I discovered ex-Jew as I knew we have a term called OTD, off the derech, means to have left the path,
Mhm.
but ex-Jew is just a much bigger punch in the gut.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. I appreciate the
Yeah.
overtness of it all. And I think again, being with Jewish, because it's literally the same word. Imagine that Pakistani and Islam was the same word, but it meant two different things. Can't what part of it you can't leave because when people ask me now if I'm Jewish, I say genetically
Which
because
is
that's the
true.
part.
But that's
And it's convenient because it implies to me that it's just that,
yeah.
right? That the part I took the 23andMe back before when they still
Yeah.
existed, and they came back very disappointing. I was hoping to be a little bit Viking, and it was like 99% Ashkenazi Jewish, and the only part that was like 1% not is the margin of error that they keep for statistical anomalies. It
They're
was
like,
so
"Aw."
boring, and they were like, yeah, they were like conciliatory about it. They were like, but there's still a lot of really nice things about your culture. Let us teach you a little bit about it. I was like, I know more about my culture than I ever want to know in my entire life. Thank you very much. I have way too much knowledge. But what it did open that door is like, okay, yeah, this is a fact of life. I can't argue with the fact that genetically I am that, but everything other than that is my choice.
Yeah,
And
absolutely,
that's kind of how I embraced it.
absolutely.
So let's go back a little bit too. I would love for you to expand on the uh, Islam being tied to your identity. I would really love to hear like what that means and almost like a very young age, right?
Yeah.
Like you're 5 years old, 6 years old. Like what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, growing up, like, seeing my parents pray at home, we had to read the Quran at home as well, and so I started reading it, I think around this age of 7, I would say, like, really kinda sitting down and reading it with my mom, and every day after school, she would make me sit down with her, and we would read the Quran together. I would not even do my homework at this point. I would first read the Quran. And with Urdu translations, as if my kid brain could even understand like this hard Urdu that this man is like saying through the tape recorder of times. And I would sit there and be like, okay, I don't understand the Arabic, and B, I don't really understand the Urdu. I'm trying my best, and also I think I get it, but I also don't really get it. And one of those afternoons, I ended up asking my mom why dinosaurs weren't in the Quran. And I think that was maybe the first ever seed of doubt that got planted in my brain because here I am in school, new to like an American school, and I'm learning about like T-Rex and Stegosaurus and like all these different like dinosaurs and how they lived millions of years ago. There's fossil evidence. And for some reason, my kid brain was like, why aren't they in the Quran then? Why doesn't God talk about them if they're so big? If there's giant bones that we found, how come there's no mention of it? And my mom's response was, whatever is written in this book is it, and you don't ask questions. And that answer was such a non-answer that it bothered me, and because I was still going back to school and still learning about them, and in my brain, I kept going, "Well, are they real or are they not real? Can I ask about them or can I not ask about them?" And so, um and I loved art. So art and science, I think as a kid, for some reason, I gravitated towards them, and I think maybe because we had, like, some PBS Nova documentaries playing in the background, and so, and we would get some of that in Pakistan and Middle East as well, and, um dinosaurs was really definitely a key thing, and I also got a little dinosaur tattooed on my hand just because of that reason. And I think the other thing I loved was art. I was profusely drawing, coloring. The space underneath my bed was stuffed with color pencils and papers and crayons and markers. And I would like come home, drag all that stuff out, do all my doodling, and then like push all that stuff back in. And it's just I loved the exploration of my imagination of what I could come up with or things I could draw. And I was drawing like I would also draw my mom like sitting there sewing something. I would draw my uncle sitting on the sofa and like but after a while I started hearing my parents go, You have to stop drawing people and animals because that is not allowed in Islam. It's actually haram." forbidden to do that because you are recreating Allah's creations. And of course, again, as a child, and this is maybe like around the age of when I hit puberty and I got my period, like kind of maybe right before that, I was told, you need to stop this. Allah is gonna make you breathe life into it after you die. Like, how dare you recreate his creations? And you need to get serious about life and start praying and start remembering Allah more. So that was basically the end of my doodling and drawing. And I threw away everything that was underneath my bed. And it was a really heavy moment for me because that was just something I passionately loved doing. And here I was being told to stop. But of course, in my brain, I was like, of course, I need to please Allah. I need to please my parents. I need to obey them. I need to obey Allah. And so, like, you sort of hover between obedience and pleasure. And pleasure is like just pleasing your parents, pleasing Allah. It's not like about your own pleasure or what gives you joy, right? Like, we weren't Marie Kondoing this back in the day. And so, yeah, that definitely was like a really big thing for me. And then I think over time, I was continuing to navigate, okay, well, I needed to pray more often. I needed to read the Quran more often. And so, like, I was continuing to become a little more religious over time. Still not as much because the hijab wasn't enforced in our house. My mom never wore it. And generally, a lot of Pakistanis back in, like, I would say, like, from the 70s to the 90s, there wasn't that much of a push for Islamization. I think really after the Gulf War, we really started to see that kick in. Uh, Here in the US too, where we saw suddenly a lot more women in our family and our community wearing hijab. Suddenly our parties were being segregated, men on one side, women on the other side. And, us cousins would like bind each other in the back room and be like, fuck the shit. We don't want to like get separated. So like let's hang out outside. And so just seeing these things kind of changing and evolving as well, that was really interesting to see in the US. And more so here than we heard back in Pakistan. Because I think even for my parents, they continuously felt like they were losing their religion, they were losing their culture being in a new country, and so they kind of doubled down on all of it. I don't know if that, like, if you've heard that experience from other folks that you've talked to that may have, like, an immigrant background, but just, like, my parents were kind of like, you saw the whole community kind of really go, we can't lose where we came from. We can't lose our culture. We can't lose our religion. And of course, being in like the most heathen country of all places, right? America, like sex and all these things are selling out. Like, you're walking down the street in New York and you're passing by like Sex World and like all these things. And so it's like, it's much more in your face than it is back home. And so I think a lot of Muslim parents worry that their kids are going to become Western or become like the Americans. And so definitely, there's a lot of control and boundaries that were created around me as well growing up.
More so than like you would say even like a cousin living in Pakistan. In some ways, your
Yeah,
parents actually became more religious
absolutely.
because of the cultural backlash. There was 2 things I wanted to clarify, that I found very interesting. One, is the punishment of creating animals or humans is that when you die, what happens?
Allah is going to ask you to breathe life into his creation. Like, how dare you recreate his creation? So he's going to ask you to breathe life into your drawings of people and animals.
And then that's a bad thing. I'm still
Yeah,
like,
because you won't
I'm
be
putting
able
myself
to.
in and it's like, you'll stand there ashamed
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yes.
'Cause I was like, as a kid, if you, like, make a drawing and then bring it to life, that's like the plot line of half, like, the children's book, right? Where the wild things are, right?
Exactly. Exactly. But here I was like, "Oh shit, how am I gonna do that? I can't compete with Allah." But yeah, and I think but that makes sense, right? Like back in 7th century when Muhammad was around and trying to create his new cult of Islam, he was seeing other worshippers worshiping statues and, right, like clay objects and things and he was going, "No, Allah's in this like up there in the heaven. Like stop praying to these like idols." And so, of course, anything that had any sort of face that looked like an animal, looked like a human, was outlawed. Just
Oh,
because
for
you,
sure. I mean,
yeah.
yeah, there was, parallels, I was raised that all of Islam was just, a fork, of Judaism,
Oh, of
and
course it is.
Judaism is really into not creating like as the inventors of monotheism, they at some point at least, probably not early on, eventually rejected idolatry and also
Yeah.
rejected any sort of images more of humans. So I was also taught that Islam took everything Judaism did, which was exactly the right amount, and did it too much. Jews do three times a day of prayer, and Muslims had to take it too far and did it five because we all know that three is the perfect amount.
And here we were, like, the women going, "Look at these, like, why do Jewish women have to wear wigs? Why can't they just cover their hair? How that's so
I
silly."
know, it's fanatics. I
But
know.
meanwhile, some of us were like, "Dang, that's actually a really great idea. A wig? Why
Exactly
didn't we
right.
think of that?"
Well, exactly. So one of the things with creating the likeness of humans, and one of the things that I live that too. I don't know
Yeah.
if you know about this in Jewish culture. Like we were not allowed to. You were allowed to have art, but it wasn't allowed to be 3D. So to this day, you know how
Mm.
like United States has a real rich culture of like sculpture. You go
Yeah.
to like a park and it's like George Washington,
Yeah.
whatever. There are no human sculptures in Israel. It's all like abstract.
Okay.
You do not see because it's statues,
Yeah.
and that's the expression of that.
Yeah.
And some people like dolls, like human like dolls, they would some of the more there's a spectrum of how fanatically religious you are, and some of the more fanatic ones they deliberately disfigure the dolls so that should not look permanently. They cut off an ear or a toe or
Mm.
a nose, which is kind of creepy in its
Yeah.
own right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what they do to deal with the
Yeah.
same glaring problem.
Right. Well, and that's like like Taliban, like, destroying statues and things in
Exactly.
Afghanistan,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, the same exact scenario where it's like the more extreme you are in the religious spectrum, the more shit you're probably gonna destroy too.
Yeah, you're gonna ruin all I grew up as a kid, I grew up in the old city of Jerusalem, so
Mm.
it's a tremendously historical place. My house was 400 years old, the ground floor was 1,000, and if you dig one floor down, it was 2,000 years of archeology. So we would go on our recesses to the local park. We didn't have proper parks, we just had, like
Mhm.
it's like an empty soccer field, and in it was these, like, these ruins which I now know were Byzantine ruins, so, like, about 1,000-year-old Christian church. And because it was a church, that's this much we did know,
Mm.
we would actively sit there on recesses and try to destroy this idolatrous church of 1,000 years old. And that was just our activity. And the teacher would stand by watching, right? And I'm not saying this was condoned by all of Israeli society,
Yeah.
but Orthodox Jewish society, yeah, it's a church and you must destroy it. That was the straightforward
Yeah.
aspect of it all.
Yeah.
The other aspect I was going to ask you about, which I was not aware of at all, this Islamization that happened during Gulf War, which I'm assuming is the first Gulf
Mhm.
War. Can you tell me more about that? I wasn't even aware. Was there like
Sure.
a turning? Was it the first time that the U.S. Invaded an Arab country, basically?
Yeah, I think that for sure, and there's a lot of sort of, well, it's a Muslim country that they're invading, and how dare they? And we have to stand with the Muslims, and so there is a lot of sort of, you saw that in the community too, where people were for or against Iraq and Saddam. And so at the same time, a lot of funding was coming through from Saudi Arabia, a lot of universities being funded, a lot of mosques being funded around the world. And that's where we started to see a lot more Wahhabi and Salafi sort of streams of Islam coming into the US and a lot of into our communities, like our local mosque. I went to a Muslim Students Association meeting at college, and there's a man standing in front of us preaching about how we should support Muslims no matter what, even if they are, flying planes into buildings. And like you and that was like between Gulf War and 9/11, between that span, like you saw just a lot of the community members moving more towards the right, more conservative, more Muslim, and really going, no, like becoming more sort of bolder about being Muslim, which is great, right? Like, you're on one hand, you're sort of going, no, this is my identity, and I'm proud to be this person, and I shouldn't face discrimination just for being this person that I am. Of course, absolutely. Same thing with me being in school. I should not have been bullied for being South Asian or Muslim, but I was. And so, and at the same time, like, it was also affecting the rest of us because we were seeing, like, I was seeing people in the community that, like, did their hair and, like, makeup, and suddenly this person was in a hijab and, like, completely covered head to toe. And so that really kind of, I think we started seeing that a lot more, and then we started seeing it back home as well in Pakistan, and, like, even looking back at old family pictures to family pictures now, seeing so many more people covered, beards, just completely different to what we grew up with. Like, like, we grew up with, like, dancing with all the family members at weddings to now weddings being segregated. So it really like it was like a slow wave that came through and really kind of pumped Islamization into gear.
Mhm. I just find this fascinating. To give you some context, partially why I'm fascinated by this is I grew up in a narrative that Muslims are just fanatics, right? And that was what I was raised in. As I deconstruct, rolling it back and seeing that actually no, they weren't always this way, and then something happened. And I don't say it's justified, but I am very curious about that
Yeah,
evolution. Like I grew up in Israel, and so Palestinians were fanatics. But actually, to learn, for example, that they were some of the most secular Arabs out there, secular
yeah,
Muslims was Palestinian Arabs, and that obviously is not the case anymore. So what changed, and
yeah,
how the influence of oppression. I find that fascinating. My father has devoted himself to calling out radical Islam, which I think is worth calling out, but
yeah.
he is not entitled to call it out because he's radically Jewish. So there's the irony there that the people
Right.
sounding this alert are the fucked up people themselves, the
Exactly.
Christians and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I was curious if you could, again, this isn't really the main thing, but I just find it so fascinating to
Yeah.
have this opportunity. What other forces pushed, I guess, 90s onwards into this? So you mentioned Saudi Arabia briefly, and I was wondering what like Saudi Arabia didn't just come up with this idea then. Like, what was it that pushed that? Was there anything else going on other than Saudi Arabia? What were some of the forces there?
I think it was definitely there was a so obviously like going back just a little bit more, their economy is pumping, like oil is being pumped through their economy. They're making a lot of money. And also they're going, hey, this is it. They took that money and they basically went, let's invest it in the Muslim communities around the world. But what that also happened is that they invested it and also they wanted their brand of Islam, the very Islamist Islam, to be out there. And I think that was the scary part is seeing the radicalization happening even within our own families. But I think, even even if that radicalization is happening because even I went through a little phase of I started praying 5 times a day. I was fasting 30 days or minus my period. I was doing all the things that I needed to do to be, like, the best Muslim I could ever be, and I I think there has to be this sort of like, what is that motivation behind this person, right? You can be radical, but what is the motivation behind it? And then what are the means, right? Like ISIS didn't just become ISIS. They had motivation and means. They had power and influence. They had all these things that made them who they are. And I think that the 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 biggest issue that I have now as an ex-Muslim is and being able to reflect and deconstruct all of this over like the last decade or so, we are unable to separate apologist Muslims, the liberal apologist Muslims who are like, right, I'm just doing this for myself. And maybe if there's that 1% chance that all of this is real, I don't want to die and like not be Muslim. So there's that group. And then there's the Islamist Muslims who like they will come at you and they'll be like, why, they're the radicalized, right? So even if it's ISIS, or a mullah at your mosque, they're still Islamists because at the end of the day, they want Islam to be in power. Islam says that Islam will be the religion that everyone will follow at the end of when the world ends. That's what they want to achieve. And so that's the scarier part for me is that like sometimes folks are unable to separate the two and also recognize that the Islamists are the ones that we have to like really worry about. The rest of the folks, like my mom, she's in her 70s. She's just a Muslim woman who is, like, going through health issues, and she's not gonna go out and do anything. The most radical thing she could do is tell me to pray, and I'm gonna be like, "No." But but I also have to, like, separate the really shitty Islamists that are making the world a much harder place for us, and they're in governments in Muslim countries because they still have apostasy and blasphemy laws. They're Islamists that are leaders of communities and mosques that are making decisions for people. So I think those are the places I'm almost going, where are the decisions being made about people and who are making these decisions for us? And that's exactly how I also sort of deconstructed Islam was where is the representation of women and who made these decisions for us? And so even that, like drawing that parallel was so important for me in my own journey out of Islam.
Yeah, so let's go in that linear approach. So you said, right around puberty, you start getting told to be more religious. You have to throw out your art. You said you went through a period of time where you yourself tried to become more religious. Was that in your teens?
Yeah, that was actually more in college. And that was because I suddenly found a much bigger Muslim community and a South Asian Muslim community there. And so I ended up becoming friends with a lot more Muslims than I was before. Before it was mostly like family, extended family that I was hanging out with mostly. And that was another thing. I wasn't allowed to hang out with with what my parents called, "Don't hang out with these white people. You don't know what they're gonna do, and we don't want you to get ruined either. Like, you're a Muslim, you should remember who you are." So I wasn't allowed to hang out with any Jewish friends, Christian friends, even Hindu friends, like, and my all of my life, I was like, "Are they gonna go to hell?" Like, but they're such nice people. Like, my one of my really good friends was Jewish, one of my really good friends was gay. And it's like my brain, teenage brain kept wondering and like literally scared for them that how I'm enjoying this time moment with them, but they're probably going to end up in hell. Like how fucked up is that that we think that as kids, right? Like that we can literally very easily be like, "Oh yeah, this person's going to go to hell. I'm going to enjoy my heaven." And so went through a lot of that too of like just questioning why were all these people gonna go to hell? They're such nice people. Can't non-Muslims be in heaven? Like, why is that such a different and why are Hindus so disgusting and dirty just because they worship more than one god? Why is that such a big deal? Like, I think I was identifying the catastrophizing that happens in Islam and why is everything such a big deal?
Yeah,
If I miss a prayer, why is it such a big deal? If I don't read the Quran today, why is it such a big deal? Because everything just felt like it was a big deal.
that's the yeah. The number one rule of fundamentalist religions is that everything is a big deal.
Like, it's like humans are suffering around the world, but apparently Allah's gonna like torture me in my grave if I don't fast this one day. And
Yeah.
so and I think by the time I got to college and, like, you notice things, you question things, but you don't really I didn't really go deep with it either. Even as a teenager, I heard my brother actually one day randomly said, "Oh, yeah, men can marry 4 wives in Islam, women can't." And that, like, mathematical inequality stuck with me because I was like, "Why not? Like, what's wrong with women that we can't marry 4 men?" But it took years for me to, like, go back and read that again and go, "Oh, shit, of course. Of course there was misogyny." But you don't really, like, think about it too much. It, like, it's like a fleeting thought, right? Like, it goes one ear out the other, but you're also like, there's something off about that." By the time I got to college, I was like, "You know what? I'm actually gonna be a better Muslim." So I started praying a lot more. I started reading the Quran a lot more, hanging out mostly with South Asian Muslim friends generally, and then obviously with other folks that I'm meeting there. And so I took a ton of courses on religion. I was just fascinated by religion in general, but also there was a bunch of Islam classes. I was like, shit, easy A. Turns out those were the hardest classes I had to get through because you don't fucking learn history. You only learn about the religion very subjectively, right? Like, don't do this, you're gonna go to hell. Do this, Allah's gonna be happy with you. That's pretty much it. But here I was learning the backstories of wars and of the caliphs and of the prophet and like all these things. And then my first class, my first Islam 101 class, literally Islam 101, two things that like really stuck with me was I heard the professor he was a Muslim professor say the Quran and Hadith were written years after Muhammad passed away. And so they were told to other people like stories. These are collections of stories that were passed down from person to person. And hearing the word story, my mind was like, what the fuck did he just say? Story. Like, that just minimized the seriousness of Islam, I think, in my brain, and I was like a light bulb went off, and I was like, "Of course, that makes so much sense that, like, they were trying to explain and tell things in their own way with the knowledge that they had in the 7th century. Of course, they didn't have all this knowledge that we have now." And the second thing was I had to write an essay, I think it was, like, my final essay for that class. I had to talk about the duality of good and evil in Islam and how, like, both things started at once, and by the end of that essay, I was fucking sitting here defending Satan, and I was like, how the hell is this happening that I'm sitting here going, "Yeah, Satan had to make that choice of, like, disobeying Allah is because he wanted to do his own thing." And I was like, "Oh, shit. Am I gonna go to hell for this paper?" And continuing to then take like all these classes, I learned about Sufism, which also helped me go, okay, there's other sides of Islam that I actually don't know about. And sort of realizing that like Sufism was more of a loving sort of way of approaching God versus this like very heavy torture, cruel way that maybe I had been taught. And those Sufism classes, Islam classes, combined with I was also taking sociology, feminism, I was studying media. Like there was all these things that were like coming to. I feel like all those things came together for me in helping me go. You know what? I don't think I need to be devout anymore. I don't want to be devout Muslim anymore. I just want to do my own thing. I don't really care for the organized stuff. I don't want to do this anymore. It's just, it felt exhausting after a while. And I kind of stepped back and I was like, all right, I'm an agnostic Muslim. I'm still going to be Muslim, but I'm going to be a cultural Muslim. So I spent a few years as a cultural Muslim until I met my atheist partner, ex Muslim as well. And I was like, you do you. I'm still going to practice. We're not going to have discussions about this. And he was like, all right, that's cool. But we gave each other therapy, which was amazing. We actually like talked about all the things. And I think that really helped me deconstruct Islam in a way that I had never done before. And I think all those years of studying, of looking into Islam, of going back and rereading all the literature, all the doctrine, I was finally looking at it from a place of safety. And I think that was what changed for me was that finally being with my partner gave me the safety and the freedom to ask anything I wanted, talk about anything I wanted without any controls, without being told to shut the fuck up, without being told that I couldn't ask any questions. And that's been such a blessing to have in my life and to be able to get to this point in my life now where I started Haram Doodles 3 years ago.
Awesome. So, just so I understand, especially that last bit, because I'm hearing like these phases, right? And I actually see that a lot. People at some point in their early 20s, especially, they like double down. They're like, well, I don't know, it's not really working for me. I'm not saying that that was your
Yeah.
example,
Yeah.
but they're like, I'm gonna try harder because
Yeah.
maybe it's not working because I'm not doing enough.
Yeah.
So then they really try harder, and then I'm hearing there was almost like this intellectual deconstruction in university because you're forced. One of my favorite quotes is teach a man one religion and he'll be sold for life. Teach a man multiple and he's be over it in an hour.
Basically.
And that's kind of
And also, like, I think that for sure, I feel like the other thing I was gonna say too was I feel like college life is really when you're sort of going through like an identity crisis too yourself, because 'cause you're like, "Who am I? What do I stand for? What do I like? What do I not like?" And so I feel like that was such a great time for me. I'm glad that I was in that moment and also going, "Who am I? Am I Muslim? Am I not Muslim? Do I like this? Do I not like this?" And I'm glad that I had just enough given to me through my classes, through community that I was able to just go, you know what? I'm going to take a step back from this. And really, after a while of speaking very openly with my ex Muslim atheist partner, I think I finally let go of Islam because I was like, I can't, I can no longer say Islam is feminist without like cringing. I just couldn't digest it anymore. I came to that point where I was like, I don't even know how to I don't know how to like when people ask me like, well, Islam is such a gave women their rights in the 7th century. We hear that a lot. I hear that a lot through even just having a public account and I just no, it didn't.
And my response is always, and people do that similar apologetics. There's
Yeah.
like Judaism teaches respect towards your slaves, and it was so progressive. And I was like, yeah, it was progressive for 2,000 years ago.
It's
Good for
exactly.
them. And then it stayed locked in time. At the time, it was introducing amazing things,
Right, right.
but now it's fucking stuck like in the 1000
Yep.
BCE.
It's
Yeah,
still stuck where it was before,
exactly.
and it was the same thing with Islam too. It was stuck where it was. There's no justifying it, and I think that's when I finally started to go, "You know what? It's not that misogyny is unique to Islam, it's that misogyny is also in Islam." And I think that was the distinction I was starting to make, that, like, more than one thing can be true, that, like, Islam can be a religion that maybe brings peace and comfort to some people, but it's also a religion that gave me a lot of bullshit, and I don't wanna deal with it anymore. And we can have
Yeah.
both people coexisting at once.
Yeah, exactly. I want to hone in on that because I'm very curious about that turning point or the turning period.
Yeah.
So you're with your partner and you agree. they're not going to proselytize you,
Yeah.
right? They're not going to like preach to you because you don't want
Yeah.
that. But there's a space that's created for you without judgment to question, and you raise it, and they're like a sounding board.
Yeah.
They could be your therapist, like you said, you provided each other therapy.
Yeah.
They could just be a neutral person for you to talk through without receiving a shut the fuck up and
Yeah.
sit down until then. So it's almost like almost arbitrary. The fact that they were atheist is not the key point here,
Yeah.
is what I'm hearing. Like,
Yep.
it could have been a friend, it could have been just time, and you just needed a space where there wasn't the constant pressure for it to continuously like kind of unravel. Is that
Yeah.
accurate?
Absolutely. I mean, there are times where, like, going just a little bit back, like, even out of college, I was going through, like, moving away from religion. I was also, like, really kind of going, I'm gonna date. I'm gonna explore the world however I wanna explore the world. And so
Yeah. You need a
I really ended up going, how can I how can I explore the world the way I want to do this? And so that led me to meeting my atheist partner and
Mhm.
also, like, eventually getting married to him. And I think that having that freedom to talk to another person and also coming at it from two different perspectives, because he grew up in the Middle East as well, but he grew up seeing a lot of things that were happening to the women in his family and questioning why. And, like, why are they getting their rights withheld, but I can apparently go and study abroad, but this girl in my family can't. And so even he was sort of questioning these things. And I think that was really helpful, was that I was able to give him what it was really like to be a woman in Islam. And he was able to give me that perspective of, okay, what was it like for him? And, what were the types of questions that he was asking? It may have started with critical thinking and science and logic and evolution, but it still had a lot to do with how the genders were, the gender bias that was really baked into Islam. And he was seeing that too. So that was really just where I felt really fortunate, because I imagined a few years ago that I was so scared that I would end up with like some Islamist guy and I'd suddenly start wearing hijab. I was so scared of that because my parents were looking for people to get me married to, like a suitor. And I'm like, fuck, I don't want to do this. I want to find somebody by myself. And I'm like, lucky that my parents actually agreed to that too, because they weren't okay with it. It took a little bit of convincing, but I'm really glad that they were open to me marrying my partner now and having those years of just deconstructing Islam together and eventually finding the
yeah.
word ex-Muslim together.
Yeah, so I want to ask more about your parents, but my first question is actually about you've mentioned like the bullshit that you've left behind, and
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's the thematic theme of it all. You could say that, it's what you're now free from, and I'm assuming it's what you grappled with at the time.
Yeah.
And so you've mentioned, I'm curious what those things are for you, and you've mentioned for sure things like the whole sexism, misogyny.
Yeah.
That's like a huge piece, right? Was there anything else
Oh,
that you kind of were like, yeah, fuck this?
there was a lot. I think the other thing I think I saw was there were people in my extended family that were also married. Like, my aunt and uncle are Sunni and Shia. And so my cousins were a mix of Sunni and Shia. And so, like, even that really bothered me as to, like, why was this such a big argument back in the day in the 7th century that led to, like, Sunnis and Shias splitting over just a decision of who was going to be the next in power? And now we're in the situation where we're seeing, like, sectarian violence in our own countries, where it's like Shias against Sunnis, against Ahmadis, against Ismailis. And, like, there's so much of that. So that really definitely bothered me a lot too. And seeing that, like, it was just because of the religion that they were fighting over each other. And, like, really just even hearing that in Pakistan, Ahmadis have to identify themselves as Ahmadis because they're not even considered Muslims. And so just those things bothered me. Scientific miracles, all those things that were mentioned in the Quran, like embryology. I know Nusha's talked to you a little bit about that too. But for me, in my brain, justified evolution that, like, okay, so maybe the first two apes were Adam and Eve. So,
I've
like,
heard all that.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. And so even like trying to get over those sort of like, okay, but it's not really a miracle. It's just they didn't know any better. They tried to explain these things about our natural world, about our universe. No, it wasn't created in 6 days. I'm sorry, not sorry. Like, it's I got to that point where I was like, I can't hear this and be okay with, well, no, that you have to believe this. And I was like, nope, you know what? That's the thing I didn't like was like the control, the continuous control, whether it was my movement or my body as a woman, or it was about the control of what you thought and how you thought about it. So I think those two things really I think were big for me.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, were you rebellious growing up? Was that like is that like an undertone here? Like, I guess why for you and other people not? As part of what I'm going at, like,
Yeah, maybe. I think so. I think I definitely maybe had more people around me or more I was look, we have media, we've got movies, we've got TV shows, we've got people, right? Books. I think I ended up maybe just seeing more people, talking to more diverse people, and also just seeing the humanity behind people instead of the religion that they were following or not following. And for sure, I became rebellious because things were being withheld from me. It's not that I was rebellious by nature. It was that I had to rebel to get my voice heard or do something that I wanted to do, even if it meant I was coming home at 4 a.m. in the morning. I didn't care. I was like, "Oh, fuck that. Just because I'm a girl, you don't want me to go out. Just because I'm a girl, you don't want me to study abroad. Just because I'm a girl, you don't want me to even go to a university further than 20 minutes from my house." Right? Like all these things that kept coming back again and again. And I think that really just the feminism part of it was really the last sort of draw,
I'm
and I
sure. Yeah.
couldn't justify it anymore.
Yeah. I'm curious. Okay, so you go to this place where you, for yourself, you become not just culturally Muslim, but you drop even that, and you basically become an atheist.
Yeah.
Um, what was that? Was there like two questions around that? One, was there like a sense making? Was there like any healing or like piecing things back together at that point? And then between you and the world, like parents, society, friends, was there like a coming out period? Do you have still have to be secret with some of them?
Yeah, I'm still closeted. I talk about it like I'm trying to grow another pair or maybe a bigger pair of ovaries to like get over that. But I definitely had to navigate that very carefully. Not a lot of people know that I'm even an ex-Muslim among my family and friends. Some very close friends know about it. I don't think there was this point of like healing. I think the healing had been happening and I just didn't recognize it as healing. And I think it did get to this point where I finally was like, I want to do something about this. Like I was getting antsy. Like I was going, there's just pent up like sort of frustration, anger, all of that stuff. And also I kept going, I kinda wanna be there for ex-Muslims that I wanna be there for people that, like, I didn't have that for myself, and maybe I need to figure out what I could do. So I, like, was like, "Should I write a book? Should I take up stand-up comedy?" But I was like, "I don't know, I might get shot, so maybe not that." What could I do that was maybe a little less intrusive, maybe very passive? I didn't have to show my face, I didn't have to do any of that stuff, and so I went back to my childhood love of drawing, and I really have to, like, give credit to my partner because he bought me a sketchbook and, like, pencils, and he was like, "Hey, you know, you talked about how you love drawing. Maybe it's something that you like, do you wanna, like, explore it again?" And I was like, "Shit, I haven't thought about drawing in a while," and so I think that really helped spark something for me, and March 2022 is when I finally, kicked off Haram Doodles, and it's been 3 years since. So that really kind of helped. I think that healing part of it, the journey that I had with my partner in those early years really, really did help me. Both of us also lost a parent, so going through death, I think really helped us also come to this reality. Death is a very natural part of life, nothing that we need to fear. And I feel like that also helped us get over the religious fear of death a lot more than before. And I think having each other and having that safety of each other, I think that that was really just something special that I think we both went through and just really helped us heal together. I think such a weird thing, right? That death can actually help you heal too. But really, I think grief does work in different ways. And I think for us, it was definitely a positive sort of thing that came out of it. Yes, we're grieving our parents that we lost, but we're also really fortunate that we're on this side of our journey out of Islam. So
Yeah. What would you say that you were healing from? right? Like, very broadly. I know
Yeah.
you have a supportive partner, and now you're able to. The image that comes to my mind is like decompress.
Yeah.
There's like the deep breath that you
Yeah.
can finally breathe. What are you letting go of in that moment?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is fear because you're told to just fear everything, fear God, fear life, fear death. Be scared of anything and everything any move you make, you have to be scared. Any thought you have to be scared of Allah. And so I think fear is definitely one of the biggest things that you sort of, it's like a giant hoop of fire that you have to like jump through. And then it gets a lot easier. Because from fear, I felt like I've always been a very like extroverted kid and still an extrovert to this day. And I think making fun of it and joking around about it was the biggest thing that I think helped me get over that fear. Yes, having that safety and freedom to talk about it, absolutely. And also then going into like, what the fuck was that verse about? Right? Like just kind of mocking it in our own way and having that safety to like joke around about like how Allah was gonna like torture us in hell. But then like there's a verse in the Quran where he'll torture you, your skin will grow back, and then your skin will get burned off again, and then it'll grow back again and again. Like that's one of the tortures. And I'm like, what are we, like, rotisserie chickens? Like, that we're gonna, like, someone forgot us in the oven and we're just, like, twirling around and around. And so I think that was definitely the fear, I think, is the one that takes the cake.
For sure. Yeah, I love that. It reminds me of that's kind of been the avenue that I took, and not intentionally. That's just like how my healing journey was. Freedom Fighter is entirely satirical. And I was just like, sorry, there's so many like straight and narrow kind of like atheism, Richard Dawkins, the deconstruction. And I'm not gonna add to that because they're smarter than I am, but I can like fucking poke fun at it and show how absurd it
Yeah.
is. And that's kind of been my little contribution to the Jewish
Yeah.
space. And you're reminding me also, have you ever seen the Lego Bible? It reminds me of that somehow. David in like a pile of foreskins, but
Right.
they're Lego, So great. Yeah. So I love that art and humor was such a big part for you. Did you go through a phase where you were, like, doing it privately and then decided to share? Was it, like, 2 separate
Yeah,
stages?
for sure. I think I started kinda doodling random ideas. I was just like, "Oh, what if there's a quote in the Quran, like, which of your Lord's bounties are you gonna deny?" And so, like, the first series that I actually posted on Instagram, because Instagram was the kind of the channel that I went with, because 'cause I'm like, "It's visuals, all I'm doing is doodling, I don't need anything else." And it was a collection of just doodles I had done, but it was like, one had dinosaurs, like, "Which of these bounties are you gonna deny?" One had weed and shrooms and wine on it, because I was like, "These are great bounties that nature provides us, but why?" And so I think that approach that I took to the doodles of using a very sort of cheeky but humanist approach, and it's funny because people think I'm a teenager, but I'm like, I'm a grown woman, but I draw like a little kid still. And so I think that helps sort of lessen the seriousness of Islam and what it is. And I think that's maybe why people resonate with the doodles so much, is because, and I think having a background, like professional background in marketing, communications, media studies, things like that, it was helpful to have those skills and to be able to communicate certain ideas about Islam, but in a very simple one doodle, and that's it. And I think that's something that people really gravitated towards, and I'm grateful. I can't believe, like, 3 years later, I have, like, 12,000 followers. I don't even know what that means, really. Like, it doesn't really mean shit because not 12 it's not like 12,000 people are, like, actually looking at my content, but it's been really great to see the growth and the love and the support that I've gotten from ex-Muslims from around the world. It's just amazing.
That's awesome. I was gonna ask you, like, what kind of impact have you seen it have? I'm sure you get messages from people and stuff like that. What
Yeah.
what's some what's that it's a great feeling.
Oh, it's an overwhelming feeling. I maybe cry like once every week or something just from the joy and the sort of sense of belonging that I think we all create by doing these things that we're doing, right? Like your podcast, my doodles, they give people a sense of belonging and they help people feel seen and heard and like they belong, right? Like we come out of this like identity and we really do end up feeling a sense of loss and isolation. And I think us having this content out there really does help people feel like, okay, yeah, you know what? I'm not alone. There's other people out there that feel exactly the same things that I'm feeling. And I think that's just given me so much joy over this time. And and hearing from ex-Muslims that are just like, you know, I can't believe you even exist. Like, how are you doing this? You know, and the fact that they give me ideas, I can take their ideas and the conversations that I'm having with them and create doodles out of it. That's just it's such a special thing, and I'm so happy that I did it. Even though I'm shit scared still, there's a part of me, the little part of me that's like, "Fuck, someone's gonna kill me one of these days," but I would rather die doing something that I feel very proud and has given me so much more purpose in life.
Yeah, wow. That's an intense statement and one that most people leaving most religions don't have to contend with. That's why like the ex-Muslims, you guys are on your own next level of like the bullshit that you guys have to deal with when you leave. You
Yeah.
know, Jews, it's like my parents won't talk to me. It's like no, I could die. You know, it's like it is so insane.
'Cause I think
There's yeah,
the fact that apostasy and blasphemy laws aren't just in our Muslim countries, they're also in our homes. That's the scary part, right? That these laws are implemented not through governments, not just through governments, but they're also implemented through our parents, through our family leaders, through our community leaders. And I think that's the scary part is that that's why ex-Muslims stay underground so much. The minute you open your mouth, you're like, fuck, is someone going to kill me? Is someone going to like, you know, harm me for speaking my mind?
yeah, it's the spiritual obligation of anybody in your circle to harm you or kill you.
Yeah.
It could be a cousin, it could be a parent.
Right.
It's just their job, and they if they could do it and get away with it, now that they've done it,
Right.
right?
Right.
So there's no yeah, you're not just afraid of the government of Saudi Arabia.
Right. Uh, my account is banned in Pakistan. I wear it like a badge of honor.
Success.
Yeah, I
That's a
know.
win, yeah.
Exactly. I've, you know, definitely there's been moments where I've had to like fight for appeals and things like that too. Instagram took a post down. And also, I think more and more people are coming out. So once I started Ex Muslim Month 3 years ago, I had not shown my face to anybody actually for 2 years. Finally, last year, I was invited to speak at Celebrating Dissent in Oslo, and it's basically an ex-Muslim conference that's put together by ex-Muslim organizations. And I got on stage, I had a mask on that actually said Haram on it, and I took my mask off and I was like, "You know what? I'm done being scared. I don't wanna be scared anymore." There's a little bit of privilege and opportunity that I have living in the US that I can actually do this and I can take that risk to help support the ex-Muslim community, and I will. Like, I think that's the thing about privilege is, like, what are you doing with it to actually help the people around you? And so that was really important for me. And so, yeah, like, I took my mask off in Oslo. Since then, I think it's just been, like, I'm working very much more closely with a coalition of ex-Muslims. They're Ex-Muslims International is a coalition, and basically we all come together, organize campaigns and actions for events like Blasphemy Day, Apostasy Day, Ex-Muslim Month. And we campaign for folks. So right now, our friend and member of Ex-Muslims International, Betty, is in jail in Morocco for wearing an Allah is Lesbian t-shirt. So we're campaigning for her to get out. We're also trying to figure out where Sharif Gaber is. He is an Egyptian atheist who has been speaking about atheism and being free to speak and think their mind. And he's missing in Egypt right now. And so, like, we campaign for these things. And I think that's given me a lot more purpose as well, is that really there is strength in numbers. And that if we can come together through this coalition and really help support the community in different ways, we need a lot. We need legal, financial, all of that. But we also need a voice, and we also need a voice that's really kind of coming together and really help amplify the visibility and awareness of ex-Muslims. I've been really grateful to help support that coalition. I volunteer with them. And then one last thing that really just recently happened is that I joined the Borganished Fellowship Program. And so that's really for non-religious leaders in the US. And that's given me an opportunity to also go, okay, now that we have a coalition, how can we better organize it? So it's just been really great sort of last year of lots of new things happening and also just continuing to doodle, which I love to do.
Yeah, when you said, we're now a coalition of leaders all across and I just imagine all of you guys just gathering and doodling. We just gather and we doodle.
And it's really cool. Borganish Fellowship Program, if you don't know about it, definitely look it up. It's a really cool program that was started about, I want to say 2, 3 years ago. And they're every 2 years they recruit a new cohort of non-religious leaders across the US. And so you come together with ex-Jews, ex-Christians, ex-Mormons, folks that are leading in their own spaces, and you all kind of come together and you share ideas, you learn from each other. It's really cool program.
I should check it out
Yeah.
as a leader of my community. Okay.
You should absolutely check it out. And then part of this year's month, my partner and I, we helped launch ex-Muslim. And it's basically the first ever global map of stories shared anonymously by ex-Muslims. And I think because I kept hearing over the last 3 years that I've been doing Haram Doodles was people really wanted to share their stories and they were afraid to. And they're not everyone is going to start a YouTube channel or a podcast or an Instagram account. And I kept going, okay, how can I? Yes, I can share stories through doodles, but we need to find another way for ex Muslims to share their stories and really to help bring the visibility that we have not had. And so exmuslim.me became that project. I was also inspired by querying the map, which is where that inspiration came from of like stories on a map. And yeah, and we launched it about 11 days ago, 12 days ago. And since then, we've gotten over 300 stories, which is amazing. So happy to like see that growth.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. This is so cool.
Thank
There's something
you.
about visualizing it, right?
Yeah.
And seeing, oh, there's ex-Muslims everywhere, not just this like theoretical thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Not this abstract concept. So cool. Is this custom coded?
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a background in tech,
Yeah.
so I even appreciate the tech stack.
It's got
I wanna
Cloudflare for safety, right? It's got all
I'm
the
sure.
things. So we're making
Yeah.
sure that the process is easy, it's safe, and it's private for ex-Muslims.
Yes, exactly. I love it. I wanna fork this and get some ex-Jewish stories on here. What was I gonna ask you? So yeah, I think one way that interesting that kind of start bringing us to a close is the question that is perfect for ex-Muslim month, especially this month, is why not Islam, Sammy?
Oh, where do I even start? Because I'm a woman. That's it. That's as simple as
I
that.
love that. It's the concise. What you're saying then is that as a man, it's pretty great.
It is. You'll benefit from it all with all the bells and whistles.
It's funny because to be a Jewish man sucks in its own way. Like we've talked a lot, especially recently. Like you get fucked in different ways as a man or a woman in Judaism.
Mm,
There's a lot of obligations that are only on the men and not on the women.
mm,
So the women get the misogyny and the sexism, and the men get like a pile of obligation and a
yeah.
sense of superiority that
Yes.
could come with that hopefully compensates, but didn't. But is it really true that like a Muslim man is just like it's all he's just coasting?
For the most part, and also I think they also have to struggle with the obligations and sort of like the fact that men have to they're responsible for leading the family. They're responsible for getting a job, right? So like I think that really does affect sort of the just the mental health of it all, right? Like for men especially like going into this. And I think having a partner who talked about this too of like the mental toll of even just performing these things and fulfilling these sort of obligations for the religion, for your religious parents, for the religious community. I think that definitely is a heavy thing to carry as well. And definitely like different from the misogyny and the sexism that we experience. Men just have it a lot easier. You know, according to the Quran, men are in charge. So you know, you can do whatever you want. You can make all the decisions, you go out all the choices, anything you want. You get it.
Yeah,
Including 72
absolutely.
virgins in heaven too. So
Exactly. I was like, what happens on day 73? I've always wondered. Like,
uh,
it's actually a pretty limited offering, all
yeah,
things considered,
right.
right? Like, if you really put your mind to it, you could probably find 72 versions on this earth
Right.
already. And then you could stay alive on day 73, you know?
Even
Yeah.
that for me was like, I think when my dad passed away, I that's when I was like, hold on. So he's gonna go to heaven and get 72 virgins. And apparently the wife becomes a virgin too, one of the virgins. And so I'm like, so my mom is one of the like, get the fuck out of here. This is such a dumb thing to even think about. Like that definitely like was one of those moments for me too, where I was like, this sounds so stupid. This sounds like a male fantasy from the 7th century. Please.
I'm going to be, this is so bad, but I was just going to say it. I was under the impression that only suicide bombers get 72 virgins.
No, it's all Muslim men. That's why you gotta have it. You guys have it so easy.
Why blow yourself up then? I don't even
It's
get the appeal now.
I think the appeal is that you get more rewards points to heaven.
Okay.
So I think
Just keep
that's
hasten it. It's like you get
yeah,
your 72 versions sooner.
yeah.
So
And you also did it like for the like Allah's cause. Like there's this
right.
big sort of motivation behind it. But yeah, but my dad's probably gonna get just as many virgins as that suicide
Right.
bomber.
So your mom is one of them, but who are the other 71? The numbers don't work at all.
I know.
Like there's like 51% women to 49% men. And if you now do 72-1 ratio, unless you're doing similar to the rotisserie chicken
Yeah,
thing, it's like a woman and she just keeps getting
exactly.
virginized, right?
And I think the math, how that works out is the prophet said that the majority of people in hell are gonna be women. So, it kinda works out, right? Like, the wives will end up becoming virgins. The rest of us that are heathens and infidels, the women that did not obey, were gonna be the majority in hell.
That is messing with my numbers even more because I need every woman I can get to be a virgin in heaven. Like I already am really low on the numbers here. And and now you're sending half of them to hell.
Right.
But yeah, of course, it figures that the women would end up in hell. Yeah. Someone recently on the podcast said, like, hell's the where she wants to be. I mean,
Right.
that's all the cool people are in hell. A few last questions for you, as just a curiosity, and again, I don't get the opportunity to ask, so it's kind of random. But
Yeah.
you mentioned early on, and I made a note of this. Some people were supporting Saddam versus America, and I get the whole like it's our culture at risk here. But what is the sentiment, and how is it justified when it's just a despot? I don't know if I'm even pronouncing it correctly, right? Like a dictator, just an oppressive person who's just bad for his people,
Yeah.
right? How is that balanced? And I'm just curious if you
There is no
happen to know.
balance. There is no balance. He's Muslim, so we should support him.
Okay, so it's
Um,
automatic.
yeah,
It's like Donald Trump is good for the Jews, and all human rights can go
yeah,
out of the window,
yeah.
kind of
And
thing.
I
Okay,
think there's like a Sunni Shia thing in there too, right? So Iraq is mostly Shia. And I think so there's definitely like deeper levels of that, but generally if they're Muslim, we gotta support their Muslims. And even in the case of, for example, like when the Taliban took over Afghanistan again, we kept hearing from a lot of community and family members like, "Let them do their thing. I'm sure it'll be fine." Are you fucking kidding me? That's your response to Islamists taking over an entire country and forcing women to be inside their homes, and that's your response? That's their country? You're not.
is it like a celebration that at least America's not occupying a Muslim country
Yes.
anymore? Is that
Yeah.
kind of where it was coming from?
There's
Okay,
there's
yeah,
definitely that, and there's also, like, well, why can't we just trust them to, like, do right by their country? They're
right.
if they're good Muslims, they're gonna do it. And it's like, "Sure."
Watch them be good Muslims.
Right.
No, but that's the problem. The definition of a good Muslim is somebody who oppresses everybody else
Yeah.
who doesn't fit the bill. All
Yeah.
women, anybody, yeah.
Yep.
So luck
And
with
very
that.
subjective too, right? Depending on who's the one making decisions about the
Yeah.
country or about the people. So, I think, yeah.
What what specific flavor of absolute truth that you ascribe to that happens to work really well for your
Exactly.
agenda you happen to be bought into?
Yeah. And that,
Yeah,
like, the more flavorful is, like, the really extreme sort of Islamists, right? You've got ISIS, Boko Haram, all that. The other ones I like to call discount Islamists because they wanna be, but they also want, like, progress, and they also wanna be free to do their thing. So they're kinda like, our family members, they would probably fall into that too, where they want Islam, they believe it's gonna be the religion that, like, takes over the world, all that stuff very quietly, but they still want all their freedom and everything else too. So, like, they're kinda in that discount Islamist sort of boat. They want both worlds.
it's like the anecdotes I hear out of, like, Dubai and, like, Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
It's like behind the scenes, they're having the sex parties and the alcohol and
Mhm.
the double standards, and it's like you're trying to, like, get the best of both worlds,
Yeah.
and we see it all the time,
Yeah.
and I
And I
yeah.
wish it was okay, right? I wish that was actually okay because we wouldn't be here having this discussion if it wasn't.
Yeah, if everyone could just go have sex whenever they wanted to, we'd be dealing with
Or
so
just
much
yeah,
less shit.
go smoke a blunt, please.
Exactly. Yeah. What other question that I was just very curious about college life, right? Like
Yeah.
you went through college and it made you more liberal in the classic definition of such. And I'm so curious because it's such a turning point where it can go in so many different directions. A lot of my parents and the community that I was in, they strategically, and I'm sure you've seen this, would prey on college students to get them to become more
Mhm.
fanatic. And that was very common. And then you get the people who, Orthodox Jews, who go to college and nothing changes, right?
There's
So I'm
plenty of that.
curious what yeah, exactly. You go through it, you do it, and you check the box, and usually not doing it. Usually for them, it's they're checking a box on a degree.
Yep.
Like they're not there for the academic pursuit. It's like to get ahead in America, you need a degree. So I'm going to do the thing where you write in once a week or whatever.
Yeah.
Why do you think your experience in college ended up the way it did?
I think for the first probably 2 years of college, I was definitely much more Muslim and more devout. really kind of trying hard to like be a better Muslim. I think for me, going from that to like really kind of letting go of the things that were making me feel exhausted about religion too. I really think that there were enough people around me that told me that was okay too. Like yes, I had Muslim people around me, but I also had a lot of examples of non-Muslims and quite honestly, I had, there were family friends who were atheists. There were family friends who were like completely different culture. They weren't Pakistani, they weren't even Muslim. So I think I had enough people around me that also gave me the signal that it was actually okay to not like be as radical of a Muslim as I thought I needed to be. And I think really objectively learning about Islam definitely helped me let go of the seriousness of Islam and really helped me go, oh, I can place Islam in history and not
Right.
in my brain. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to live in my brain for me to go, it's a historical thing that happened.
Yeah. I get that a lot. I had to do some of I did it in reverse where I left first because I was angry, but then the more history I could get, the more it kinda notched into a very specific place and came off of that pedestal that it was still kind of living on in my subconscious.
Mhm.
It's making that came with it. What I was gonna ask you a few final questions. So, no, just to summarize what I heard from you about college is that you were almost primed a little bit. There was some amount of, like, openness
Yeah.
to other ways of being and an openness on your part to just actually be curious
Yeah.
and to actually say like, "Oh, is this how it goes? Like,
Right.
where does this fit in?" As opposed to like, you know, kinda shielding yourself
Yeah. Yeah.
from it all.
And I think I definitely saw that too in college too, where it was like I could see sort of the radicalization happening with some really moving away. I was like, I don't want to deal with this stuff anymore. I kind of was like, and what's insane is the first 2 years where I was a little more devout, I kept going, what's the point of me even going to college if all my parents want is for me to get married? Fuck it. I was failing miserably, like, midway into college because I was just like, "I don't care. I don't really what's gonna happen? Let me just rebel, fuck around. I don't really care what I'm doing at college anymore." But once I think I got into this sense of, "Oh, shit, this is actually gonna be my future. I will be working at some point, yes. Maybe I need to, like, do a little better just so I could figure out, like, how I can get financial freedom." And so something clicked for me over time and I graduated with a great GPA. I was very proud of myself for turning that around. And I think that's once I started working and again, I had to work, but I couldn't live anywhere else. I lived at home through college. I lived at home even while I was working. And so there was no sense of freedom for me beyond me going to college and making up, like, lying about what times my classes were because just so I could hang out a little more, doing all those things, right, that you just want that sense of freedom a little bit more, and I think that really helped me also learn a lot more about myself and what I wanted and what I didn't want, and so, I'm really glad that I did that, and I ended up graduating, ended up getting started working as well, even though I heard at home if your husband allows you to work, you can work. If your husband allows you to like move on, get more of an education if you want, you can do that if he lets you. And that pissed me off all the time. I was like, fuck that. I'm never going to marry that kind of guy. And so
Right,
every time they
right.
came up to me and were like, oh, we want you to meet this guy, I'd be like, fuck, no, I'm not going to meet your whoever this guy is. I'm not going to meet him. And so I'm just grateful I found somebody that I now spend the rest of my life with.
Were you only able to move out of your parents' house when you got married?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was like a key missing piece here, right? Like
Yeah.
you're under their wing the whole time, and that is like I'm assuming a Muslim teaching and also a
Mhm.
cultural thing. Like you're gonna stay in your parents' house
Yep.
until you move into your husband's
Yep.
house, and finally you can breathe and
Yeah.
be your own person.
And the fact that like
Wow.
women the general sort of understanding of women in Islam is you are rapeable. Like, as crudely as I can say it.
Mhm.
You like, it is about what you wear, it is about what you say, it is about everything that you do is gonna potentially make a man assault you or rape you. And so, you need to be covered, you can't go out, you can't hang out at night, you can't like, there's just so many rules and regulations around being a woman and being a girl that, like that I think eventually I was like, I can't deal with this anymore. I'm done. I'm so done with the misogyny and the sexism, and not just going from experiencing it to actually learning about it in Islam, that was definitely eye-opening for me too. Because experience is one thing, right? Like, you go through it and you are like, "Fuck, is this happening only to me?" And then you look at the doctor and you're like, "Of course, this is happening to everybody.
Yeah.
This is
Black and
systemic."
white, and it's built in. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
built into the system.
yeah.
Do you think you would have ever left if you hadn't gotten married?
I think so.
Like, fuck it one day and just leave your
Yeah,
parents' house
I think
and
so. There's definitely times where, I was not ashamed to admit this, but I was definitely suicidal at
Mhm.
times. I wanted to run away. I was trying to make plans of, like, potentially, can I escape this and can I go here? There's definitely all those plans that I was making, and also was just so scared to, like, do anything about it. I'm just really glad that, like, this person comes along in my life and was able to, like, understand where I was coming from, having similar backgrounds and cultures and stuff too. He's also Pakistani Indian, and so, like, that definitely helped me and helped him kind of understand our situations and also, like, get out of my house.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Did you guys meet online?
We did.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's the way to do it, especially for
yeah.
ex-Muslims. There should be a dating site, right?
I know, right?
Your next tech venture. Uh, I
Exmuslim.us.
I love it. Me, you just click a button and it just pairs 2 random people, which is how Jews do matchmaking, by the way. It's like, "Oh, you both have a pulse." Yeah.
Wow, I'm gonna
Oh
have
my god.
to exmuslim.us. I think that's a good inch.
I love it. Yeah, exactly. Well, we came up with it today, conceived of it here. Yeah,
Mm,
so final questions for you. I know
yeah,
I said that earlier already. I have one last question I'm gonna ask at the very end, but before that, I like to let people do you have anything for me? I've been interrogating you for over an hour. Is there
yeah.
anything you would like to ask me?
What's the most surprising thing that you have learned from speaking to other people that has helped you on your own journey?
I love that. No one's asked me that before, and you're saying across the board of, like,
Yeah.
anybody.
Or maybe something that's really stuck out for you, or something that, yeah, because I often find myself talking to other folks too, ex-Christians, ex-Jews, ex-Mormons, ex-Hindus, and there's sometimes they'll say something, and you're like, "Shit, I never thought about it that way." So I don't know if that's ever kinda come up for you.
Yeah, it's interesting. For the most part, and, my gut instinct was to say, "No, I'm past it all," and to some degree, I think this came from a place of being healed enough that I could take action,
Mhm.
right? Not even take action of, like, being angry, which was a previous action, but more mature, kind of like not that the other stuff isn't necessary, it's all staying up. Like, I am at a certain point, I've been out for almost 10 years, and I can, like, what can I do to, like, amplify other voices? So my first instinct was like, that's not really the point of, like, me getting something out of it. Other people can get something out of it. But the truth is, when I think of, like, these brief moments, it's actually been talking to other religions.
Mm,
I remember learning about certain, like, fucked up things within Christianity, seeing certain parallels
mm,
between my life and other religions. Like I said in the beginning of, like, seeing other religions, when you realize that the fuckery is systemic, like you were saying about, like,
yeah,
with it's not just me, but it's actually this entire religion. One step further, it's not just this religion, it's like all religions. There's a pattern
yeah,
that they evolutionarily follow, right?
yeah,
I studied sociology also, and I think of a lot of the evolutionary psychology of
yeah.
things, of how they survive. They have to check certain boxes, and that helps their survival. The personality types that end up at the top, right?
Mm,
The things that people are stifling in order to be able to do what they do. Those patterns. So I remember learning about, like, talking to somebody whose father was like a pastor, and hearing of, like, the kind of fucked up family dynamics that the pastor's family had, mirroring my own religious, my father was a rabbi
yeah,
thing. I remember it was really eye-opening. I had never spoken to, like, a really fundamentalist Islam, as I interviewed Rami earlier on the podcast, and Rami grew up a little bit more secular, talking to, like, a Saudi Arabian couple, and, like, hearing, like, and he was like had to, like, learn verses from Islam all day, from the Quran all day, every day from the age of 6. That was my childhood, right? But
mm,
it was
yeah,
the Torah, instead of hearing those levels of parallel, but from a completely different strain, has been emotionally validating for me. There's this, like, a wow, we're all being fucked equally in its own way, and it puts, like, the Judaism that was raised in some sort of continuum of, like, well, the Christians are here and this is their main flavor, and the Muslims are there and that's their flavor, and Judaism is always somewhere in between the two
Mhm.
because of the influence, the big
Yeah.
circle jerk that they all are. And like, where does it land? And like, okay, well, philosophically, I was raised a little bit more. There's a little bit more of Christian influence of like heaven and hell, that flavor of it all, and the apologetics, because
Mm.
Christians are more too closely tied to the Old Testament.
Yeah.
I remember learning about like all the ways that Christians explain things and realizing, wait, this shit that I thought was our unique explanation of the Bible is actually literally how the Christians have maybe came up with it first. That
Mm.
was big, and then. But like the laws, the way that the religious people, the Orthodox Jews approach the day to day life of like laws and rules
Yeah.
is not Christian.
Yeah.
Christians do fuck all most of the time, right? They just feel guilty and they're good. And the Jews is like, and that level of like anal retentiveness is much more Muslim, right? That's the shared piece. And and to have that has been really interesting to kind of put it on the map. And that's I've appreciated more so than talking to more ex Jews because I was in the middle of it all. So it's it's fascinating and different flavors and different perspectives, but the almost like the cultural exposure from other religions has been, I think, the most eye opening for me.
Yeah. Same. I would say, like, since childhood, I feel like even like, meeting so many different people in college, learning, like, minoring in religion, right? Like, even those things, I think learning about people just in general that are different from you, I think that goes to a point of I think these religions dehumanize people so much that it's up to us to help humanize them back again. And I'm really glad that we end up doing that and like meeting other people and meeting other ex religious folks because we end up humanizing even those folks that like we understand that like our journeys are so similar in so many different ways. Yes, we've got unique sort of circumstances, identities, experiences, and yet there's so many parallels that we can draw amongst ourselves too. So that's I really do appreciate that about this work of I never called myself an activist and I feel like now I can actually say that I'm an activist and really that's been the most beautiful thing is like connecting with other ex-religious folks that are like we totally get it and I'm like shit, wow, you get it. It's such a cool feeling.
It is, yeah. And to realize that there's a shared camaraderie around anyone
Yeah.
who's left religion, but to realize that you can have that shared camaraderie also to some degree at least
Yeah.
around anybody who's left a religion, not just your own. And
Excellent.
I think that was part of like Freedom Fighter was entirely a very, very niche type of religion of Judaism, even the subsegment of Judaism that I had left. This podcast is broader and it's
Mhm.
deliberately voices to anybody and everybody. And so I see a value in that. And I
Yeah.
see a value that's similar to what I gained of having people on to share the similarities and differences from that experience of like leaving this all these fucked up ways and
Yeah.
the world has been stuck in for so long. My final question for you. You might not have a favorite, but what's one of your favorite doodles?
Oof, dang, that's a hard one. I think it's definitely gonna have to be I put 4 men in a hijab, different
For
types
men.
yeah, but different types of
Okay.
hijabs that we see in the world. Just the hijab, head to toe, a burkini, and the basically the like the little headline that I put on it is, "Men should practice hijab or own up to oppressing women since the 7th century."
Yeah, like pick one. Pick
Yeah.
one. Like walk a mile in this in the someone else's hijab, basically.
Okay.
I love that.
And then,
It's a very concise way of
yeah,
showing that. Yeah.
on the hijabs themselves, one has I love making T-shirts on people and the doodles themselves, and so one is "Gaze down, hijab up." One is "One of 4 husbands, worth half of a woman, and hijab is my choice."
Oh, I love that little poke at the end. I remember encountering on Reddit, this it was called the Islam is actually very progressive starter pack. And it was like the Nike hijab and like I'm actually choosing this, all that fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
It's all there.
So, a lot of my
Amazing.
doodles are kinda like, I'll do one that's like 1,400 years ago, 1,400 years later, 1,400 years
It's the
ago.
same.
Yeah, like Muhammad was like, "Oh, yeah, like, women, you have to, like, cover yourself, we have to be able to tell who's free and who's a slave," and then 1,400 years later, there's a woman standing in a hijab, and she's like, "It's my choice." And it's like, "Of course. Of course it is."
Yeah. Amazing. Sammy, keep up the great work.
Thank you. You
It's
too.
been a
Keep
pleasure to
fighting.
have you. Thank you. Yes, keep fighting. Exactly. And happy ex-Muslim month.
Thank you. Same to you. Take care.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Beyond Belief. If you found the episode inspiring, please share it with others who might benefit from it, and be sure to subscribe to it to get updates about future episodes.